What is going on, y'all? It is the Caveman back at it again with the Cave. Every Thursday evening, I take to the airwaves on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook to discuss anything and everything regarding the NFL. And I'm very, very excited, of course, to welcome another very special guest and one that I've been anticipating to have on for a while. So I'm glad that we were able to connect and be able to talk about football tonight. With that being said, and if you do know my channel, you definitely know my man Greg Tompsett. Thank you for taking the time tonight, Greg. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Excited to be able to come on. Excited to see everything you've got rolling over here in the cave, and glad I get to join in.
Yeah, it's going to be a really good night, man. And unfortunately, I feel like in weeks past we've had some news spoon fed to us more than usual, but it's been kind of dead the last couple weeks. So I'm kind of just picking and choosing what we got. But of course, I got the other segments to fill in. But if you're not familiar with Greg, Cover One podcast host is one of the biggest faces over on the best network in all of the Bills, content creation space and just in football space in general. Cover One puts out top-notch product. They work with a lot of other top national creators. You guys have a connection with Brett Coleman. I think that's awesome. The work you guys do with Bills players from top to bottom. Very, very top-notch product. So you guys deserve all the credit in the world.
No, I appreciate it, man. We're very proud of what we built there, and honestly, it started just like you're starting here. So it's been a long grind while we've put this together, but seeing people react to us and how that's allowed for more access to different things has been very rewarding. So we appreciate it.
Yeah, 100%. And with that being said, Patrick, thank you for popping in. If you're in the chat, feel free to say hello, and we'll get right into our first segment, which is just a recent headline. And it is, of course, I don't want to beat this dead horse too much. Really, I wouldn't have put it in here if there was any other news to talk about. But because there was that stupid viral clip that kind of got brought back up, Michael Florio kind of helped push that flyer a little bit. If you didn't see it, I have it on tap for you. Here's what happened.
Stefon Diggs stuff going on. Can you talk about your relationship with him?
Yeah, I love him. That's my guy. Like, what the media has blown this so far out of proportion, right? Like, we are in rookie or mini camp. We're not playing a game for 4 months. He doesn't show up one day. He's still there. Coach asked him to go home. We were in talks and discussions of trying to resolve some things, and it wasn't anything major. And media just blew it up. And they're still talking about it. She's like, let it go, let it go. There's no reason to continue talking about it. He was on the field with us the next day. It was not a big deal.
So, we all heard about it originally. Josh Allen actually had this recorded near the beginning of the month, and they just released it now, which, reignited the fire. But long story short, what were your thoughts on the whole situation? How did you feel about it? What way did you lean?
So, obviously, you hear Josh say it's no big deal. I think ultimately the most important part for fans is that part. The part that this wasn't as big of a deal as a lot of people made it. Now, a lot of people includes, I think, an overly emotional response from Coach McDermott when he went into his press conference. I joke all the time, all season long, he gives us freaking cliche coach speak non-answers all year when I actually want detail and honest answers. Now, when I probably could have used a cliche coach speak non-answer, now you got to give us the unvarnished emotional truth. Is it all right? I'll get off my soapbox. So, I think he was being honest. I think he was frustrated. And then I think that made people think, oh, is this a big deal? And ultimately, it's not. Now, the combination of, I think Stefon Diggs kind of likes attention. And could he have resolved this on a random weekend in April when he could have flown, him and Josh and McDermott and Bean could have flown wherever the heck they wanted and go and had a beautiful dinner together and talk through this privately with nobody knowing? Yes, they could have done that, and none of this would have come up. Did he need to skip all the optional non-mandatory mini camps and then address this the first morning of the mandatory mini camp? No, I don't think he needed to do that. But I think those two things, the fact that those two pieces might have been avoidable from McDermott and from Diggs, then made it seem like this was actually a big deal, that this was a contract holdout, or this was him wanting to be traded, or that this was like something material. Giants fans and Cowboys fans and everybody like chomping at the bit that, oh my God, we're going to get Stefon Diggs. It was never a big deal. So all those things are why you can't blame reporters for talking about it. You can't blame them for wanting to get information about it. Those two people made it a big deal coverage wise. It wasn't actually the thing that people wanted to make it out to be. It's just that we didn't have enough information to know, so everybody's kept asking. So I'm hoping that addresses it. Honestly, the next day at minicamp, when you see Josh and Diggs holding hands, skipping down the line, talking together, like it's not an actual big thing, but I get why people tried to build it into something and kept asking.
Yeah, I mean, that's what the internet does. That's what people do nowadays. They bite on anything, especially when a team is in the spotlight like this.
Yeah.
Big faces, NFL, pushes these guys on a regular week-to-week kind of deal. And when anything dramatic goes down, especially with faces like this, people are going to bite onto it. And that was going to be my question to you, and you already really touched on it. But, do you think Diggs should be shedding some light from his perspective to kind of to kind of tone things down, because Josh is obviously taking heat and he's having to speak to it consistently. McDermott obviously had to. Do you think Diggs, whether he was right or wrong in the actual situation at hand, should have came out and said, things are good, stop dogging my guys and let's let this stuff settle here?
Should is such an interesting word.
Yeah.
Should he have? It would have made my life a little easier. It would have saved me a little heartache. I think he has earned the right to speak his mind. Now, whether those things, these are all speculation. Nothing I'm saying right now is going to be reported information. These are all things that have enough kernel of truth that I think it's one of these things. So Brian Daboll left, and Josh got to have a huge voice in basically handpicking the promotion of Ken Dorsey. Chad Hall leaves. They don't ask Steph who the new wide receiver coach should be. Maybe that hurt his feelings. We all know the crazy rumors about Josh in the offseason. I think most people realize that a portion of that is true. A portion, obviously a relationship did end. Most 7-year relationships don't end awesome. And there probably was a big blow up at the end that didn't go well. That those are reasonable things to assume. If that affected his play, a prominent player might question someone about that. I think that's reasonable. Stephon Diggs puts in an insane amount of work in what he does and wants everyone to be putting in an insane amount of work to be as good at their craft as what they can. So all of those things, he has earned the right to speak his mind, he was an elected captain on this team. He has the right to push people. And he's honestly one of like 2 people on the roster who can actually question Josh. There's not that many people who can openly question him in any sense. It's probably Diggs and Vaughn is about it. So all of those things aside, personally, as someone who I see myself as a leader, whether you talk about it Cover One or in my professional life, my day job, I would have addressed that privately. I would have addressed that in a private moment between me and the involved people to tell them what I thought and how I thought it needed to be addressed and what I thought they should have done or how we could do it together or whatever I felt I shouldn't need to do. So Stephon Diggs is his own man. He can do whatever he likes. I don't think he should have done it the morning of mandatory minicamp to have that conversation, or the night before and then further conversations the next morning, if I understand the timeline right. But I can't judge him. He's his own man. If that's when he felt he needed to do it, then God bless him. I think there's a bit of an attention-seeking element to that. So even though he deserves to have the conversation, he's earned the right to ask those questions, he is a leader who should be pushing other people on the roster. Did you need to do it in that moment? And could you have just come out and said, hey, you guys are blowing this out of proportion. I love Josh. I'm happy to be here. I just want to push us to be the best that we can be. And we need to work through these things to figure out how we can do that. Just as simple as that. I'm not going to talk about anything else. I'm not going to talk about whether it's play calling. I'm not going to talk about whether it was, disagreements between Josh and I or anything else. It just, I want to push us to be the best we can be. And that was all this was about. If he says that, all of this goes away.
Yeah.
So again, someone who spends their off season doing fashion shoots in Paris and likes to send cryptic, vague tweets every day. And as far as I know, hasn't spoken to the football media since like week 10 of last season. The man likes attention. On the other side, he's an all-pro receiver who's amazing with an untradeable contract.
Yep.
What are we gonna do?
Right.
What are we gonna do?
Right. And to that point, the week that all this went down, I had Josh Reed on, and that's kind of what he was saying too. It's like sometimes life's just not fair. Some people have the advantage to be able to act in ways that other guys might not be able to. And that applies to football. That applies to the business world. That applies to everyday life. And that's just the reality of things. And that's what's happening in the situation. Nobody else can do this. Like you said, nobody else could be going about this the way.
Life's not fair, man.
Life is not fair at all. And this is just another one of those situations. I just look at it from, assuming that they are such great friends. And that's never been a question in my mind. It's just if I'm seeing my guy having to go to bat for me over this ridiculous, dramatic thing over and over again because people are pressing him about it, everybody's different. Everybody goes about things differently. I would want to, just simmer it down for his sake. But,
I would love to see that. And I still think it's reasonable to think we're going to get that.
Yeah.
I actually think that he doesn't have an obligation to do it on our timeline.
Right.
So if on the third day of training camp, he has a press conference and says, I don't have any idea what you guys were talking about. I never wanted to be traded. I never was upset with being here. I'm a passionate, competitive guy, and I wanted to make sure everybody was on the same page with the priority of figuring out how I can best help the team win. And that was all it ever was. I love Josh. I love Coach. I'm happy to be here. What are we going to say? We're all going to be like, oh, well, all right. I kind of wish you had told me that a couple weeks ago, but okay. And then we all move on. So I still do want to hear some of that. And I think we will. We'll see when and how much and if it really settles it down.
Yep, absolutely. And I think that probably covers the entire basis of this. I don't want to beat it too much more. But yeah, long story short, it's blown by us. When he catches his first pass week 1, regardless if he speaks on it, we're all going to forget about it anyway. All right, we'll move on. We have a couple questions that I want to ask, football related and applying to you. The first question that I do have for you is going to be this. Assuming New England, or if New England lands DeAndre Hopkins, are they almost as much of a threat to Buffalo as Miami or the Jets?
Almost is a good phrasing. That's a well-crafted question. Almost. I still think they're fourth. I still think, but I think it does, DeAndre Hopkins is a weapon, and that for anything you want to say about Mac Jones, he is accurate. So if you combine an accurate quarterback with a guy that has super glue for hands, that's a good thing. And he's going to help them. And he's going to convert third downs they wouldn't have converted. He's going to come down with red zone touchdowns they wouldn't have come down with. He's going to keep drives alive that would have ended in punts. The reason all of that comes into play is their defense is very real. They had a lot of injuries last year. Guys like Christian Barmore and like real players, Josh Uche and Matt Judon are a very legit pass rush combo. They've got a bajillion weird hybrid safety linebacker guys that all play the same thing. And they just keep drafting more and more of them every year. And they have like 6 guys. You don't know if they're a safety or a linebacker. It's weird. All that was already there, but their offense is kind of just, didn't have a lot of threat or a lot of firepower to it. So inserting whatever you think of DeAndre Hopkins, he's not a top 5 receiver anymore. He might not even be a top 10 receiver anymore, but he's a wide receiver 1. Like he's a top half of the league wide receiver 1. Inserting that into any offense matters. So it's weird that our division is so stacked that you could add someone like that and probably still be fourth. but it does bring them up closer. So I think almost as much of a threat is accurate. I would still have them fourth, but barely.
Yeah, I think I'm right on the same wavelength. And when you factor in, the difference between Matt Patricia and now Bill O'Brien, who was DeAndre Hopkins' head coach at the time, it was head coach, I think, right? That offense, Mac Jones looked ready to go year one. He was pinpoint, on time, in rhythm, and I was quite frankly high on him. And year two comes around, massive change in offensive coordinator, massive change in play for Mac Jones. I don't think that's, a mystery. I think we know what probably happened there. And Mac's weapons, now he's got Ramondre Stevenson in the backfield. If he brings in DeAndre Hopkins, that's huge. They did bring in the Juju from Jacoby Myers, switch. I wasn't a big fan of that. But nevertheless, there's still names there. You get an offense that can put up 23
Mike
points.
Gesicki. They added in Mike Gesicki.
Yep, Mike Gesicki's still there. I'm still a fan of Hunter Henry. He makes plays every once in a while. You can never count out New England. And it just feels like no matter what one of these teams in this division have to go below 500. Everybody wants to point to New England first. But something in the back of my mind, especially if they were to land DeAndre Hopkins, it makes me think it's going to be a lot closer of a race than we're making it out to seem. And I'm not sure who at the top is going to get dragged down with the rest, whether it's New England, whether it's Miami, maybe it's us by some unforgiving miracle. Who's to say? I think this is probably going to be the most competitive division in football. Maybe not the most talented, but I think it's the most competitive if DeAndre Hopkins lands in New England.
And just a random complaint. Why the hell can't we get some of those years the Patriots had where the rest of the division was so embarrassingly bad that it was just a 6-0 head start? Why can't we have that when we're the Vegas favorites for the division? Why can't we have a cupcake year? This is crap.
It really is. I mean, we're talking about hypothetically D-Hop in this situation. That's a top 20 talent at worst still. Garrett Wilson's, in my opinion, going to take that Jamar Chase type of step, and he's going to be one of those superstars, I think, very soon. And then you got Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. I mean, the superstar talent that is in this division, it's unfair. It really is. I mean, we are very blessed to have the secondary we have to be able to handle this. But, God bless us. We are not getting a cakewalk. Just the last few years have not been a cakewalk. I think our best chance to have won a Super Bowl would have been that year we lost to the Chiefs in the divisional. That was, and I feel like that was going to be the quote unquote easiest year, if you will. And that still was an absolute hell of a road. Now it's just top quarterback after top team after top quarterback after top defense. I mean, you're facing superstars all over the field. It almost feels like every week. But yeah, I'm right there with you. The second question that I have for you, and this is a conversation that I had for the last couple of days. It really blew up on Twitter. I'm not sure if you came across this thread or not, but there was this read made by Trevor Lawrence on a Yankee concept, and I'll show you the clip first. And The question, is this the right or wrong read? Goes to Zay.
Show me one more time.
Yeah.
Because I was following the crosser there for a second.
Yeah, that's exactly where the eyes go.
Okay.
So it's like, Kirk's coming open over the middle. The argument is he sees the false step from the safety for that very brief false step from the middle of the field safety. He takes a shot. He hits the throw. I mean, it's tough to kind of tell in that clip. Hits Zay right in the chest. But does that make it the right read? That's really the big question. Or not the wrong read, I guess, is another way to put it.
So let's take Trevor Lawrence out of the equation. Let's say it's Josh Allen. Let's say it's Patrick Mahomes. Let's say it's, just from my point, Justin Herbert. When those guys see a false step, even a minor one, and they know their guy's going to have a step, and they know they can put it not only on the spot, but with the velocity. I get into this all the time with fans who think arm strength isn't distance. Arm strength is distance in a period of time. It's velocity. It's that, throw at the end of the fourth quarter against the Lions where Josh rifles it in there before the safety can break on it, when the safety was dead certain he was going to knock it down. And all of a sudden was like, wait, what the hell? Where'd the ball go? That's what arm strength does. So when those guys, when a Josh Allen, a Patrick Mahomes, even Justin Herbert, and a small handful of other guys see that false step, know their guys at full clip, he's already even with the defender. If I put the ball in the right spot, it's a touchdown. That means it's the right read, because the crosser is the safer throw. The crosser is the virtually guaranteed first down. And for 25 quarterbacks in the league, the crosser is the right read, because if you're off by just a little bit, if that ball floats just a little bit, you're throwing into double coverage, and that's asinine. And you're giving a free pop fly interception. So now the question is Trevor Lawrence that guy? Is Trevor Lawrence in that tier of arm talent to say that, hey, if you see a false step, take it and go? He's probably closer than Bills fans realize, or the Bills fans who maybe don't watch a lot of 60 minutes of Jaguars football, which understandably probably is a fair amount. There's not a ton of prime time Jacksonville Jaguars football, although that looks like it's gonna be changing going forward. I think it's probably more okay than people realize. I'm never gonna fault people taking the safer throw. I'll give you a good example. Peyton Manning takes the crosser. Peyton Manning is one of the greatest quarterbacks in NFL history. Peyton Manning takes the crosser there 10 times out of 10. Tom Brady probably takes the crosser there. So two of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, 10 times out of 10, they take the crosser. I don't mind that we have one of the quarterbacks who would have gone for the touchdown. And we see plenty of those, and there's plenty of awesome touchdowns that Josh throws. It's in pretty good coverage. It doesn't matter, because our guy has a better arm than your coverage. And the Trevor Lawrence is probably closer to that tier of arm talent than many people realize.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And that was, one of the counterpoints, because I found myself leaning toward the, I think if we're talking right read, which would imply best read, to me, it's the crosser, just because the way I look at it, regardless of who you are, that throw needs to be perfect every time. If we're talking long-term, is that a throw in the long-term that is going to yield positive results? And probably not, because you cannot make that throw perfectly every time or more often than not. It's just not possible. Now, how many times you're in that situation, who knows? You come across it probably once every other week that you might be able to take a shot like that, whether they do or not. And the other question I did want to ask you was, do you think the throw and the read, are they dependent variables or are they independent? Would you say a read is good if a pass is on the money, or do they you hear what I'm saying?
Oh, 100%. So I'll use it in a basketball analogy. Kobe took a lot of shots that weren't good shots and that you're not supposed to take, but if they go in, so when you're talking like coaching and you're talking about how you're explaining this to 99.9% of people who throw a football, like everyone in high school, everyone in college, and almost everyone in the NFL, then of course, this isn't a matter of those are fixed elements. Like, hey, that's the right read. You make that throw, because living to fight another day is the smartest way to play football. That is the right way to do it. Now, one of the things that those guys have introduced is how dangerous and valuable the chunk play is.
Yeah.
And, I would say in a perfect world, you argue that a well-timed on the run leading throw to that crossing receiver, he probably can also turn up the sideline and have some space. And maybe that's not trading, because if you're doing it as that, hey, would you trade 100% chance at a 15-yard crosser for a 40-yard touchdown where it's 20% odds of completing the 40, then all of a sudden it's like, well, yeah, it's probably safer to do that, but I understand you need to go for the chunk plays here and there. In the other examples I gave, Peyton Manning and Tom Brady probably put that so feathery on the money the guy also can turn up the field before the sideline and get another 10 or 15 yards, and maybe you're talking like 1st and goal at the 8. So it is smarter. It is the smarter play to do that. That is the more sustainable path to good, consistent football. I don't even mind if a strong offensive coordinator says, no, I would rather you take that super high percentage, but still, you're not talking about a high percentage 4-yard dump down. You're talking about a 15 to 18 yard play. I would rather you take that every single time, even if I know you can make that play. Take the guaranteed first down, take the potential for yards after the catch, and we'll live to fight another day, because I know you're better in that next set of first downs than anybody else, and I'll bet on you then. So I don't mind if somebody, even in the NFL, even with a super uber talented thrower like a Mahomes or an Allen or a Herbert or whoever, I don't even mind if somebody coaches that way. But I get it where you give your guy, if they're gifted in that way, to say, hey, if you see it, go ahead. I trust you. Take your shot.
Fair enough. I think that's probably the most, what's even the word I want to use for this? The best way to think about it. It really comes down to who you have under center. Yeah. And that's the bottom line. And when I was going,
you made the comments on Diggs. Everybody doesn't play by the same rules.
This is the same way.
This is the same way. Everybody doesn't play by the same rules.
You are right about that. Some guys can do it, some guys can't. Yeah. And when you can get so granular with something like this. It just kind of, like you said, the easiest way to go about it is whoever you got determines whether or not that throw is good or the right read. Hypothetically, it's semantics.
Kirk Cousins, it's 100% on the crosser. It's that threshold of what's there. Tua is taking the crosser 100% of the time. It's just there is a small group where I don't think it's the wrong read because they see that false step, but it is for everyone. It is the safer read and the smarter read to take the crosser.
Yeah, it is really almost opinionated, to be honest. It's almost opinionated to an extent whether or not what the answer to this question is. But yeah, that was something that I spent like a decent amount of time breaking down and arguing with people about on the internet. So I wanted to ask you, and we'll move on to our final question here of the Q&A, which is something that I always like to ask all my guests because everyone has such different experiences. It's cool to hear. What is the best / most memorable experience of your content career thus far?
That's a good one. We've done a couple live shows that were really cool on site. We had Tim Graham come and join us to do a live show last year, actually. That was a ton of fun. Doing some quick hits at training camp, like right live afterwards. But we've been fortunate to have some really cool guests and to be on with some of the players and have them share, their seeing their face when they realize that we can actually talk ball and they were like, we actually know the calls and the reads and the schemes or the fits or whatever it may be in the oh shit, these guys know what they're talking about. Nothing beats that. Nothing beats that acknowledgement, that head nod, that respect from an active player that connects live in the moment where they think they're just jumping on being nice. And they're like, oh, this is going to be a fun conversation. These guys actually know what they're talking about. There's nothing that beats that. That's the coolest, most memorable experience for me is whether it's me or whether, more often than me, it's Eric, and guys doing the film room, doing the different breakdowns. Nothing beats that experience of seeing like, all right. And seeing their recognition that we understand what they're doing, that we put the time and effort in to understand what they're doing. That's the coolest thing so far for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. Cause like we were talking about earlier, you guys have had, fair share amount of players hop on shows, hop in the film room, and the conversation, it lasts, it doesn't drag. It is, X's and O's the whole time. And it's an even level. The playing field's level. I mean, you guys really do a fantastic job with all of that kind of stuff. And that I never know what to expect from my guest when I ask this question, but another fantastic answer. And if you guys, of course, are interested in getting that granular, getting that deep into stuff like that, when it comes to football, there's no better place than Cover One to go check that stuff out. Pokemon is a question as well. I always like when people drop their own questions. He says, "What's your favorite player from the bad years?"
So I won't cheat because Kyle Williams is my answer. Kyle Williams is my favorite. I love Kyle, but I think that's almost a cheater of an answer just because he was such a obvious bridge and leader, and he's my biggest regret of this 5-6 year run is that, God, I wish he could have been here for this. Like that still hurts me a little in my soul. I would say, like, from a sneaky underrated one is Terrence McGee. I think people don't remember or realize how electric that dude was when he got the ball in his hands, and wasn't just an awesome returner. Like, he was a legit corner. Like, he could play real corner, and then was a game-breaking returner. And that a lot of times when people ask, like, oh, what player would you want to add onto the current roster? There's a lot of good answers. You know, you can make a pretty good argument for Jason Peters or Mario Williams or whoever. Like, there's really good obvious answers. But that's always a sneaky one I bring up, is like, I would, especially for that stretch there where we had a need at both corner and return man, I was like, I'll take Terrence McGee. I'll take him back. That dude can break a game open. So my real answer is Kyle Williams, but a sneaky one I like to give some love to is Terrence McGee.
That is true. If there was one guy that deserved to be a part of what's going on, I mean, Kyle Williams embodied just this culture, this city, what the franchise was all about, especially, you know, what McDermott and Bean have instilled nowadays. I mean, it would have been the easiest transition in his entire life. Oh, it would have been wonderful. And he probably has been a part of it to some extent throughout the last few years. But I guess if I had to answer this myself, a buddy of mine, one of my good friends, his name's Cam. He was a huge Carlos Williams fan, and I liked Carlos Williams. There was the short stint of time where he was making an impact. You know, trying to stray away from the common answers. That's probably where I would go, is with Carlos.
Another
Williams.
Crazy. What if he, whatever it needs to be, even being polite to him, what if he just had a little better guidance in his life in that off season, and as he had that first, you know, real flash of success, just somebody in his ear keeping him really focused and grinding again. You know, real shame that we didn't get to see what that career could have turned out to be.
Yeah, absolutely. He really was an excellent talent. All right, so we'll move right on to our next segment here. This is going to be called the Hilltop of Hypothesis segment. If you're new around here, you're not familiar, this is where I ask my guest if they have a take, and everyone does, that they are willing to defend, and they will die on the hill defending, and their mind cannot be changed on it. Greg, let's hear what that take is for you.
Okay, so I struggled with this for a minute because I don't have a lot of crazy takes. Like I'm more probably known for being overly reasonable and like too middle of the road in things, but I got a couple. One, I just want to put it out there for everyone that the salary cap is 100% real. The salary cap is 1,000% real. It is not a myth. It is as real as every dollar you spend on your credit card. Now, does that mean the money didn't come out of your bank account that day? Sure. But do you still have to pay for it someday? Yes, you do. So, one, the salary cap is 100% real. But my hilltop of hypothesis, my take is there is no reason any team should ever walk to the line calling a run play ever.
Okay.
There is no reason.
So nobody should ever run, period.
No. So hold on. No,
yeah,
it's actually not that.
Okay.
There is no purpose in ever walking up to the line where you know we're going to run the ball on this play. The only time teams should run the ball is when the defense responds in such a disrespectful formation that they have 5 guys in the box, or that it's a scramble, or that it's the right read on an RPO, or a true read option, but a run pass option in the modern sense. That no team should ever walk to the line calling a run play. That there's no reason you should ever take that out of the arsenal. That it is the best offense that you could run would be walking to the line every single play with a pass play, and the alternative of where you can hand it off if they absolutely dare you to. But that I think modern offenses have leaned further and further into like not only more than 50-50, but like 60-40, 65-35, almost 70-30. On the season, everybody almost ends up, even the highest pass rates are like 60-40. And I get it that sometimes you get into 4-minute offense mode and you're going to hand it off and that'll skew your numbers. I think the right ratio is way closer to like 85-15 or 90-10. And that just the power of passing the ball in the NFL is so consistently more successful and gives you a higher likelihood of success. And the EPA, expected points added, and all the metrics show you over and over again it's there. So it's silly to say you should never run the ball because that is too easy to defend. Then you never have to worry about it. But you should only make defenses pay for it when they get so drawn back and only worried about the pass that then you make them pay for it and run the ball, or you have the quarterback draw type thing where, hey, we're going to set it up as 5 wide and everybody's going to go out and I'm going to take one false step and then I'm going to take off. But that it's those kind of plays where you're punishing them for the alignment. The idea of that like 1980s, jumbo set, 2 tight end, fullback, 3 yards in a cloud of dust, I'm going to run it and you can't stop me, is just so silly, where the best possible outcome in that situation is like 1.5 yards. It's like the best possible outcome. There's so many things we can do better than that. So that was the best I could come up with, is something out there that I really would die on the hill, is that no team should ever walk to the line of scrimmage knowing that they're going to run the ball.
Wow, that is something I've never heard before, but that's a unique one. I mean, you reach deep in the bag of tricks.
I tried. I thought anything else I came with was going to be too boring, so that was the best one I could come up with. That like I genuinely believe that. Like lots of people can argue with it. Obviously, it's a crazy thing to say, but I genuinely believe that. Like if I was coaching a team, that's absolutely what I would do.
That's excellent. That's an excellent thought process. And I was going to ask you, let's say you don't have a Josh Allen, a Jalen Hurts, a mobile quarterback that can carry yourself. Does that restrict the packages you have to come out in because you constantly have to be ready to audible, ready to change something up at the line? Would you become restricted because of that?
100%. It would be a philosophical approach as a team that we know we are only building a team that has a athletic, versatile, run capable quarterback. Gotcha. And that we're not only is that all we're interested in as our franchise guy, but that's the only backups that we would bring in. We would always have guys that are capable of doing that, so that could be a part of it. It would also mean we would only value the James Cooks, the Nyheim Hineses of the world. They're like, hey, we only want pass catching running backs who are good in RPO settings, who are good in, draw situations and those kind of read option situations where, hey, they might get the ball, they might not. Even when they don't, they realize they still need to then go out in the pass play. Those kind of situations, I would want to build closer to what Shanahan runs in San Francisco, where you have a bunch of guys who, are they a fullback? Are they a tight end? Are they a running back? Are they a receiver? Everybody can do a little bit of everything, and that kind of versatility on offense.
I like that. I like it a lot. Yeah. I mean, guys that are just able to, and guys like that are, hypothetically speaking, wouldn't be having to go up against stacked boxes. They're not looking at, having to come up against too much contact at the line of scrimmage. The idea, obviously, is to have them find their hole the few times you're going to run, gain the 5 or 6 yards after their burst, and, that's your run play. I like that. I like that a lot. That's very unique. I'm going to enjoy chopping that one up. That's how I played Madden.
So there's so many things that, one, the play style in Madden has taught so many people. Do you know how many like top level Madden players are better at clock management and timeout usage than
yeah, so many.
actual coaches? Because you are so trained and have so many repetitions at maximizing every possible second you can use. Now, it's also bastardized roster building to convince people, especially someone who prides themselves on the salary cap. Like it's also completely bastardized people's minds of like how you can build a roster. But we'll put that part aside. The other part of it, I wish there were more things people took from Madden in what that allows you to do. How about the fact that some NFL coaches are now seeing that, you want to know what? Spamming a play that's working really well isn't a bad idea.
Yeah.
Like some scenarios, like you see situations where teams are calling the same play 2 and 3 times in a row and going back to it 7 and 8 times in a game, because you want to know what? They can't stop it. And they're not making the adjustment that fast in the game that they can deal with it. Those are Madden things. Like those are things that people have been doing there. Like, well, screw it. They can't stop it. I'm just going to keep running this. So there's more things that probably could come there, even if I do probably talk ill about what Madden's done to some of the roster construction ideas in people's minds.
Yeah, that's something that I was actually going to put together like a short video about, like things I do in Madden that I think could apply to
100%.
real football. And so Brett Coleman actually tweeted something out I think it was like a week ago. He said, I think teams are going to start to adopt the mindset that you don't need a fullback, just somebody that can play fullback. And I'm like, I've been doing that for years. I don't draft fullbacks. I'm not looking for fullbacks on my team. I'm putting Latavius Murray at fullback. I don't give a shit who it is. Big body.
The Bills have done that the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Reggie Gilliam is a fullback by name only. He is a tight end. He's a tight end. He's a special teams player. He's exactly what you want that versatile piece to be. He and Quentin Morris are basically the same person. Like they're both kind of that kind of deal. And that's and they're not Kyle Juszczyk, but they're that idea. Like that's what team should have. Is he a fullback? Is he a tight end? You know, can he take some carries out of the backfield? Can he catch 50 passes if we needed him to? Dangerous weapons that can do multiple things. That's how modern football should be.
Yep, absolutely. Could not agree more. That was a really good one, Greg. I love that. All right, so we'll move on to our second to last segment here, and this is going to be the Caveman's Advocate segment, another one in which, if you are not familiar with, could get a little bit spicy. So long story short, I'm going to present a debate to Greg here. He's going to pick a side, and whether I agree or not doesn't matter. I have to play devil's advocate and try to keep the conversation going, hence Caveman's Advocate. So the debate that we have for you here is going to be this. Is Gabe Davis a top 40 wide receiver in the NFL? What do you think?
I hate that. This is like when Vegas sets a line and it's like right on where like you don't know which to pick because like that's what the line should be. This is really, really good. So Cover One has done a lot of work on, hey, Gabe Davis is not some 1A, 1B, you know, about to be a wide receiver one that's going to replace Stephon Diggs. He's not. But he's actually an above average and arguably top 10 wide receiver 2 in the NFL. Well, where does a top 10 wide receiver 2 in the NFL put you? That's 42. So I actually had to go through and look at it. And I'm going to say just barely that no, Gabe Davis is not a top 40 wide receiver in the NFL. But it really comes down to, you know, where do you put some guys like a Christian Watson or Jahan Dotson or a Michael Pittman or a Drake London or guys like that like, you know, or do you still count a Michael Thomas or an OBJ or someone like that, or guys coming back from injury like Rashad Bateman? There's just some tough spots that are there. None of that is counting any of the younger guys that I think have a chance to, you know, that I think, you know, I don't know that I'm going to put Jackson Smith and Jigba ahead of him right this second, but, you know, maybe week 6. I'll be saying that. You know, ask a Steelers fan if they're going to trade you George Pickens for Gabe Davis. Guys like Jamison Williams. I think fans would be shocked at how many really good receivers there are. And I think Gabe Davis is probably in that 40 to 45 range, and that I would put him just outside because I think I could come up with 40 names I would take over him, but just barely.
Yeah, I mean it's tough because we've seen many different forms of Gabe Davis throughout the last few years, many different versions, many different Gabe Davises that have shown up to the playing field. And one of the conversations that were had this offseason that I caught wind of was just Ken Dorsey's usage of Gabe Davis and he wasn't, if I'm not mistaken, used in the slot nearly as much as when he was with Brian Dable, and he actually turned out to be he's a lot more versatile than I think he's given credit for. He can play in different areas. He can be utilized in different situations that it kind of felt like Ken Dorsey didn't give him in comparison to what Brian Dable had to offer. And, for that reason, that might be why we only saw one version of Gabe Davis, which was the big player nothing. And that's, I haven't done too much granular work on that in that sense. But, when talking about a guy that a lot of people are, giving shit for and looking at as just a one-dimensional receiver, he, once again, that could be said about a lot of guys in this offense at this point. How are they being used? How are they being put in a position to be most successful? And he's flashed, man. I mean, there are moments where this guy he's made catches. I don't want to say George Pickens level, but he can fight through contact. He can use that 6'2", 210 frame to make a play or two. Sometimes he might not, and that's what everybody likes to focus on. But the Steelers game, those were two monstrous catches, or the one monstrous catch. The other one was just a catch and run. But nevertheless, he can be used in different situations, and I think that's something that gets overshadowed when you're talking about guys like like you mentioned, Christian Watson, or whoever these other electric young guys are, because Gabe is just looked at as so one-dimensional. And in fairness to him, I think he was overrated following the divisional game, and that's what all the hype built him up, and then he just kind of crashed down. When in all reality, he just lives in the middle, which I think fairly could be putting him top 38, I would say. So
yeah, absolutely.
Gabe Davis, to his credit, I think deserves almost another chance in a way.
If we had this conversation last year, coming off of the 4 touchdown game in the playoffs and going through those kind of situations, we're having a conversation of, is he a top 20 receiver in the NFL? Is he a top 25 receiver in the NFL? So it's very likely in the middle, and I think that there's a chance we come out of this year definitively feeling that, hey, I think that Gabe Davis is what I realistically think is he's a really good wide receiver too, and that even in the right situation, I don't know that he has every single thing you'd want to be able to be a wide receiver 1, but that your offense is better by having him as your wide receiver 2, and that's still a good thing to have. So I think that could end up being like a top 30, top 35 range, and that I hope he proves those people wrong that are really down on him. I think that he's right there as an above average wide receiver 2, and could even be one of the better wide receiver 2s in the league. And that's a range where he would be. But right now, I think he needs to show us that to prove it.
Yeah, and I would realistically agree. I lean toward no as well, and I kind of put my eggs in one basket here, kind of hoping you'd shift left or shift yes a little bit. So I'm now kind of trying to collect my puzzle pieces and put something together. But I would agree. I mean, I actually, unfortunately, have found myself, as you did, and I've been having this argument with friends. I mean, you ask a lot of Bills fans, you hear top 40, and you're like, 40, that's a lot of guys. But in all reality, I mean, there are 60 excellent receivers, 64 excellent receivers in this league that, you're going to have a hard time putting him to him or this guy to this guy. It's like, but I mean, it really is, I don't know how to put it. It just feels like Gabe Davis to me, this is not even advocate anymore, just is, I mean, kind of the opposite of what I was originally saying. It does feel like he really became a one-dimensional piece. And I try to, I listen to his utilization and the way he was, optimized in this offense, and, how he wasn't given the greatest of opportunities. But it wasn't even anything about that. It just felt like when the big moment, was there for him, more often than not, he didn't make the play. And what kills me, and it's not fair because it would have been a ridiculous play to actually have happened, but the Josh to Gabe throw in that Jets game, I feel like Josh was robbed of what could have been like the greatest completion in history. As
70 yards in the air. He threw the ball 70 yards in the air after his UCL just got sprained.
On 4th and 21, this guy is rolling left and he is, having to fight. I mean, he's really throwing in a very linear lane too. I mean, this ball has to be as accurate as possible. I mean, that is a 1 in 1,000 throw, and for it to hit Gabe, I mean, I get Sauce was pretty handsy,
correct.
He was very handsy. To Sauce's credit, he knows what situations he can and can't do that, and that's what makes him one of, if not the best in the league right now. But at some point, it felt like his, use that frame. That's what you are that big body for. There was another deep ball against the Patriots where Josh was rolling right. He made another ridiculous throw. I don't have it on hand, but it hit Gabe right in his lap. I mean, he went to cradle the ball. I'm not sure if you remember or not, but he went to cradle the ball, him in the chest, flops out. And look at PFF stats. It's not even the drops. It's contested catch targets to contested catch catches. Contested catches. Is that the right terminology?
I think contested catches works, but I get
contested catches.
They'll use contested catch as its own category. It's not crazy.
Contested catch targets and contested catches, 26-8. It's one of the lowest in the NFL, and that's what I feel like he needs to start capitalizing on, because he's never going to be an elite separator. That's just not his game. He is probably never going to be a technician in the short yardage situations. He is going to need to utilize his body more, and I think that's what this offense needs, and I think that's what he was kind of being leaned on to do in some scenarios. And it just felt like he came up short, and he's not offering much yards after catch. I think he was third last among qualifying receivers in expected yards after catch. There's, it's either you are excellent at one thing in this league, if you're going to be one of the best, or you're very well-rounded. And right now it just feels like he's neither of those things. And I want him to prove that badly. And call me a hater all you want, but there's just a lot of guys that I'm like, he's well-rounded or he's really good. And those are one of two reasons why I take him over Gabe.
Well, and here's there are certainly some Bills fans right now who are yelling at the two of us, being, "Oh, you're crazy. He's better than." Here are some names that I also rate outside the top 40, just to let you know how many receivers there are out there. These are guys in the list that I used, and I kind of shuffled it around a little bit for my personal preference. Cortland Sutton, Deontay Johnson, Brandon Cooks, Michael Thomas, Darnell Mooney, Elijah Moore, Alan Lazard, Tyler Boyd, Adam Thielen, all the rookies, Jackson Smith and Jigba, and all those, Hunter Renfrow, even guys who are maybe a little over the hill, like an Allen Robinson, that there's some really good guys who also aren't in the top 40, because that's how many really good receivers there are in the NFL. Top 40 is a really, really elite list of guys, and that there's a lot of guys there that I just rattle off some names that if you told me in a private moment we could trade Gabe Davis for and insert a handful of those names I just rattled through, I'd probably kind of have to think about it for a second. Yeah. I'd be like, let me look at some things real quick. There are some things out there. So that is not a slight. That is not a level of disrespect. Those are other really freaking good receivers that are also in that same range, 35 to 50. I think there's kind of a tier there where you can make a pretty good argument. There's probably a right around the Chris Godwins and like those kind of guys where you get around like 35-ish. After there's kind of a drop off, and then there's a group of young up and coming guys who haven't quite burst yet, or kind of older guys who still are really good. And Gabe Davis is in that chunk from 35 to 50, and we'll see where he ends up after this year. And for his sake, he better hope at the top of there, because he wants that contract.
Absolutely, and for his sake is right. So he better step it up just a tiny bit, because that's what this offense needs. And we brought in Dalton Kincaid, but in all reality, he's still got to be one of this. He's got to be the beta to the alpha. He needs, Diggs needs that if he wants to, like you said, get paid. So we'll move on here to our final segment to finish off the show. The most anticipated, the Caveman's Quiz Game. I've had a lot of Cover One folks come through here and kill it. Some others not. A lot of people come on. They'll tell me they suck at trivia, and they suck at trivia, or they say they suck at trivia, like Judge did when he had his appearance last season, and he killed it. So Well,
Okay.
are you good at trivia, Pat? What are
Now
your
I know.
thoughts?
Well, if Judge killed it, now I'm going to be pissed if I don't do well. So, I actually really like trivia. I used to go out with friends all the time. We would go to trivia nights. We had a trivia contest in Cover One, not that long ago, that went really well. That went down to, both myself and Kyle Salagi blew everybody else away, and Kyle edged me out just barely. But he did beat me. Kyle beat me. So, I'm pretty good. I'll be mad if I don't do at least pretty well.
All right. Well, giving yourself some credit here. You better back it up. Here are your quiz rules. This is how it works. You got 8 questions, 2 easy, medium, and hard each. There's 1 impossible, 1 wager. Easy equals 10 points, medium equals 20, hard is 30. If you get both in the difficulty category correct, so let's say you get both easy right, you'll get an extra 10 points. So you'll have 30 at the end of the easy round, and so on and so forth. The impossible is 50, and the wager is whatever you want to put on it. And the final wager question is, the category is determined by a wheel in which we will spin, and then you can decide how many points you want to put down.
I like it.
Here's your leaderboard.
Woo.
Dave Kalugi came on. He took over 201. Jarrett was on with 200. Josh, Peter, Dan, all stuck in the double digits. Here's your opportunity to take the number 1 spot. Dave is shaking in his boots right now as he just took over the top spot last week. So we'll see what happens here. First question, we have the easy question. First easy question, which is going to be this. Who won the Coach of the Year award last season?
Oh, hell. I'm already mad because it didn't immediately pop in my mind. So I know there was a bunch of talk with Tom. I think it was Sirianni. I know there was talk of a couple different ones, and Dan Campbell had some buzz. I think it was Sirianni. Nick Sirianni?
It was Brian Dable. Brian Dable came away with the award.
Oh, God. Oh, I'm already mad that I missed the easiest one. Oh,
Brian Dable came out as the winner. But you're right. It was the big debate at the end of the year whether or not it should have been Dable or Sirianni.
I already missed an easy one. I dug a hole.
That's all right. You still got a lot of opportunity, a lot of bonuses to be had. Wager question, of course, too, but you're good. Second easy question here we got is this. Who led the NFL in receiving yards last year?
Okay, so receiving yards, like first name that came to my mind was Tyreek Hill. I don't know if it was Hill or Jefferson. Now it's going to make me crazy. Justin Jefferson.
You are correct. It was Justin Jefferson.
I'm pretty sure those were the top 2.
You are correct. Okay. Justin Jefferson was at the top. I have it here somewhere. I just can't find it. But he was at the top with 1,900. I think Tyreek finished with 1,730 something. Okay. Something or other. But yes, you are correct. Just had to break the ice. Get comfortable. It's like being a hockey goalie. You got to just feel the first save.
Still mad I missed Dable. I'm still mad.
All right. We'll move right on to medium here. You got 10 points going into it. And the first medium is going to be this. How many consecutive wide receivers were drafted in the first round of the 2023 NFL draft?
So it was started with Jackson Smith and Jigba at 20. Zay Flowers, Quentin John. So the question is, was there a fourth? It was for sure 3. I think it was picks 20, 21, 22. Did it go to pick 23?
No time limit, by the way. Don't stress yourself out about the time.
I think it was 3, but Quentin Johnston was included. Jackson Smith and Jigba, Zay Flowers, Jordan Addison. No, it was 4. Jordan Addison.
You are right.
So okay, yeah, 4.
You were right.
Okay.
Yep. It went JSN, Quentin Johnson, Zay Flowers, Jordan Addison. He went to the Vikings at 24 or 23. So there you go. That's another 20 points. You're up to 30 now.
Okay.
Up to 30 points. So you have to really royally screw things up to probably not. I mean, unless you wager everything at the end, of course, to not at least make it up on the leaderboard.
I'm a gambling man. So
All right, we'll move right into the second medium, which is going to be this. Who is the only player to rush for over 2,100 yards in a single season?
This is not a trick question.
Wasn't intended.
If you had asked me before, I would have said that the record was like 2,094. So I remember the reason that I'm hesitating is I remember the game where like Adrian Peterson didn't realize how close he was. And then like if he had kept going, he could have gone over. So for the longest time it was OJ, then you had Eric Dickerson, Barry. So does that mean it's Chris Johnson? It's either Peter. I'm going to say Chris Johnson.
It was Eric Dickerson. Eric Dickerson at
It was Dickerson. Okay. Indeed. So that's what I'm remembering is Adrian Peterson was super, super close to it, and they interviewed him after the game, and he didn't realize like how many yards away he was, that he had already been at like whatever it was 2,090 something, and didn't realize he was like 9 yards away or 10 yards away or whatever it was.
He was 8 yards away, 9 yards away from breaking it, 8 yards from tying. 2097 he was at. Yep.
Yeah, that's the interview I remember, and I remember him not being at 2,100, and I thought it was just below there. Okay, so it was Dickerson. There was a 21. Okay,
that probably could have been a hard question, I think.
No, that's a good question. That's a good question.
All right, we'll move on to the hard. We got two hards. We got the impossible and the wager left, so plenty of opportunities still to be had. Here's your first hard question. Who has the most catches with one team in NFL history?
I hate how you phrase that. All right. So
if you need clarification, I can clarify without giving a hint.
So it doesn't mean that player only played for that team. It just means, or it doesn't have to. I just say like the answer could be Jerry Rice with the 49ers is what I mean. Like it could be.
It doesn't have to be played with one
portion
team
of the guy's career. Although the answer very likely is a guy who played his whole career with one team. All right, so I know Tony Gonzalez is up there. Obviously, it was Largent for a long time. Rice, but Rice played for a bunch of teams at the end. Something's telling me like Marvin Harrison is kind of sticking out. Yeah, Tony Gonzalez played for multiple teams. Guys past Largent. I'm gonna say Marvin Harrison.
You might kick yourself a little bit when you hear this one. Larry Fitzgerald with
really
1432. Yeah, Larry Fitzgerald, dude played.
No, that's a yeah.
I don't know who I would have said in that. I wouldn't have said Larry. Larry's just not a guy that's going to stick out in that.
Well, it just was consistently good over and over forever. Yeah, no, that's a great one, and he obviously only ever played for the Cardinals. Sneaky answer.
1432 total reception in his career. What was the stat? Less drops than something.
More tackles than drops.
More tackles than drops.
He has more tackles. It's insane. He has tackled the defender after his quarterback threw an interception more times in the NFL than he has drops. That is a phenomenal stat.
That might be a top historical stat in NFL.
It's phenomenal. Phenomenal.
All right, second hard question we got for you here is this.
I need this one.
Who led the NFL in passing in 2019?
Okay, so you're going back to so it's prior to the 2020 season. So you're going to like the first year of Mahomes. That's Jared Goff is good. That's So was the Jameis 30-30 season in the no fans, or was that the one but with the 2019? I mean, Mahomes came out and threw for a crap load in his first year out there. All right, I need a Hail Mary here. I need something for the hard. I need some points to wager. I'm gonna guess it was the Jameis 30-30 season.
You're right. It was Jameis Winston. That's huge. That is huge for the run here. 51-09 he threw for that year.
Okay.
Jameis Winston.
That dude chucked so many passes that year. Like just Mike Evans down there somewhere. It's fine.
Yeah, literally. That was
chucking the ball.
That was awesome. The 30 for 30 year, 5,000 yards. One of the most infamous quarterbacking seasons in history for Jameis Winston. But you are now up there with a fancy 60 points after that correct hard one. So now you have the impossible question still, which of course you can get. This will be 50 if you get it correct, and it would put you at a fancy 110. And then you can wager from that. So your question is going to be this. Which team in 1968 was the first in NFL history, in the history of the NFL, to play on artificial turf?
Oh God. It's pure guess. So it's gonna be one of the like one of the domes down there, like the Astrodome or the Georgia Dome or the Superdome. It's going to be one of those. That was like when they started building those. And obviously when you first started going indoors, they had to do the crappy turf because they didn't know how to grow grass and have it inside at that point. I don't know. I don't know when domes were built. This is
impossible for a reason.
I'll say the Astrodome.
Team specifically.
Oh,
just to be a
so
stickler.
The Oilers, the Houston Oilers.
You're right. It is the Oilers.
No,
you
shitting me?
Correct. I'm serious. The Houston Oilers were the first team to play on turf in 1968.
That's hysterical.
When you said the domes, I'm like, he's gonna get this because once you narrow it down to just those few, I mean, your odds increase dramatically.
Yeah, that's the only reason you would have turf back then is because they didn't know how to grow grass inside. That's hysterical.
There you go.
That was real deduction, but that was pure guess in the ending there, whether it was the Falcons or whoever else and playing in the Saints and the Oilers. That's fun.
Well, this run just became very real because now you have 110 points.
Okay.
And we're going into the wager question.
Yeah.
Guess what, Dave? Once again.
I'm wagering 92, Dave.
This might be one of the craziest comebacks here after a rocky start. Putting 92 points, you said? Excuse my math. That'll put you over. We'll figure out the math after.
Wait, hold on. Maybe it needs to be 102? What is it? Does he have 201 or 211?
He had 201.
Oh, yeah, so 92. So I got 110, 92.
All right, 92.
92.
All right,
I'm walking out here with
8.
It's either 100, it's either 202 or 8 points. That's the only two options.
Everybody does this to each other. They just want to up the last person by one singular point. I love seeing it.
That's it.
All right. So let's, of course, can't forget the wheel spin. So I'm going to share my screen real quick, and we're going to see what category you have. So we have stats, draft, history, award, transactions, and miscellaneous, which if we get it, you'll see what I mean by that. So the spin is going to give miscellaneous it is.
Oh, what the hell does that even mean?
You're going to find out. It's not going to be like, who had 6 toes in 1910 or something crazy like that. It's reasonable.
Okay.
All right. So your miscellaneous question is this. Michael Crabtree squared up to squared up to fight who in a Week 12 matchup during the 17-18 NFL season. Watching the reading today.
Okay, it's one of two guys. I can't. So I'm talking through live here. Is this either like at the peak of the Richard Sherman thing when Crabtree was at the Niners and it was Sherman talking afterwards, all the trash he talked afterwards about how he couldn't guard him and they tried to throw him the jump ball there? Or is this the chain snatching with Aqib Talib? It's one of those two. And I can't remember if Aqib Talib snatched Michael Crabtree's chain or if it was a different receiver that I'm not thinking of in the moment. So the press conference that I'm talking, or the interview I'm thinking of was in the playoffs with Richard Sherman, but it was because that was like the next time around with Seahawks 49ers. I want to win really bad.
I love it.
17, 18. Yeah.
You can feel Dave's heart beating right now. I can feel it for him.
Richard Sherman.
It was Aqib Talib.
You son of a bitch!
It was Aqib Talib. No! I think Talib snatched Crabtree's chain, which then provoked him to swing, and they went off and threw it. It was Aqib.
I knew it.
Oh, man. Once he said the playoff interview, I started to try me with the sorry ass receiver like Crabtree, the whole thing goes. But I honestly forgot that was like an ongoing thing. So I see what you were getting stuck on. I only think about.
It happened a couple times that season because I don't remember exactly. Like I think Crabtree might have got the better of him in the regular season matchup, and then that's why in the playoff it was there. Oh, damn it! All right, that's all right. I'm glad I got myself back into the running. I had a shot to take the lead, but kudos to Dave. He got it. I got my Hail Mary with the stupid Astrodome thing. So I'll take that. I feel I at least I did myself proud. I don't care that I ended up with 8 points. I had a shot. And I had it down at a 50-50 chance. I did myself proud. I'm okay.
You had 18 points. Give yourself some more credit here. You finished with 18 points. Yeah, I mean, you stuck to your mojo. You're a gambling man. You went at it, went for it all.
Yeah,
and that's what happens. That's the trials and tribulations of the quiz game, of the wager. But
that was awesome. That was a ton of fun, man. That was a ton of fun.
I'm glad you enjoyed it, man. But yeah, once again, I appreciate you for taking the time tonight. A lot of great conversation. You were excellent to chop it up with, so I appreciate it once again.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Wish you all the best here, and excited to see you off to such a good start.
Thank you, man. Yeah, if you guys want to check out Greg, of course, highly recommend you do. And all of Cover One, his links will be down in the description. Of course, if you enjoyed, like, subscribe. You guys know the bit. And we'll see you guys next Thursday. Peace out. Go Bills.